So this build is fantastic, and it uses Felwinter's Helm with Strand, and it is as effective as it is fun to use. So how this works, it works best in team environments, but it's also pretty effective in solo content, but in much tougher content, it excels with teammates. Now the gameplay loop is a lot of fun. It involves going in for finishers, getting melee kills as much as you can, as well as suspending loads of enemies for maximum aggression in a playstyle, which is extremely good for ad control. This allows rooms to be cleared super quickly in much tougher content, especially in scenarios where enemies are super condensed. And since you're going to be running Weaver's Call, whenever you spawn a healing rift, it will create 3 threadlings, which allows your rift to be utilized in a more offensive way. And the grenade for this build is Shackle. This grenade can suspend enemies, and is super strong since it can suspend any champion as well. Fragments you want to run can differ slightly, but the main fragments you want to use are Thread of Finality. This creates threadlings on finishers. Since you will be doing a lot of finishers with Felwinters, this is a must-have. Thread of Warden. This fragment gives you Woven Mail when you pick up an Orb of Power, which is a huge boost to your defense. It's super useful. I run this all the time in much harder content. Thread of Generation. Dealing damage generates grenade energy, just gets you that grenade back faster because you're always doing damage. You can swap these out. You can run Thread of Fury, damaging targets with the Tangle grants melee energy, or Thread of Continuity, but I recommend Fury the most because if you chuck that Tangle at enemies, it gives you so much melee back, which is super useful with Felwinters because you want to be throwing that melee out. It'll be creating orbs and doing that blinding weaken explosion. So I focus on resilience and discipline mainly. And the mods that I use for the helmet are heavy ammo finders, strand siphon, or whatever else you want to use to help you make orbs. For your arms, you'll want to use bolstering detonation, focusing strike, and heavy-handed. The Warlock melee is very good, so you'll want to be using it whenever you can as well, since melee kills also cause a weakening explosion from Felwinters, and you will be creating orbs from heavy-handed. Focusing strike will also help you get your rift back faster, which goes into the loop because you put that down. You'll have Bomber, which will give you your grenade back faster. On your chest piece, just make sure you have charged up, as well as the right defensive mods based on whatever content you're running. For your legs, I like to run double recuperation for extra healing in tight spots, and 1 innervation. You already have a lot of ways to get your grenade back, so I like to have that extra healing so you have that extra survivability. You can swap out recuperation for double innervation as well if you'd like. I'll do that sometimes if I'm in easier content and I don't need so much healing. For the class item, I put on double bomber and healthy finisher. That way, you can get your grenade energy back whenever you use your rift. And having healthy finisher can come in handy when you are going in for finishers, as it'll heal you up on each finisher for only 1 armor charge. This has saved my life tons of times and allows you to be even more aggressive and go for those more risky finishes. So, all this gameplay loop involves is throwing out suspends and getting enemies weak enough for finishers, which will spawn threadlings and kill enemies as well as blind and weaken all nearby combatants, allowing those threadlings to do massive damage. Something to keep in mind is that the bigger the enemy you finish, the larger the weaken and blinding explosion is. So, for example, if you finish a champion, the explosion will be huge, blinding and weakening sometimes entire rooms of enemies. This build does not rely on any artifact mods by any means. You can run it without them just fine. But here's some tips to really make this build shine right now. You can use some of the current artifact mods to really amplify your ad control to an insane level. You will want to unlock Untangler, Counterweave, and Threaded Blast. With these artifact mods, all you have to do is shoot a tangle with a strand weapon, and it will cause a huge explosion suspending all nearby enemies without having to use your grenade. And Counterweave is super useful because it gives you strand energy back every time you stun a champion. Quicksilver Storm works amazingly with this build, especially with these artifact mods because you can create tangles on the grenade kills. I recommend this if you're going to be messing around with the artifacts. It can go crazy, as you can see from this footage. This ability paired with constant suspends creates one of the strongest and most fun strand builds I have used so far. And of course, I have a dim link to the build in the description. I hope this helps, and best of luck out there.